Guys, what's going on? We have Sergio here, the big man, the legend, right? We have him on. Serge, thanks so much for jumping on, brother. I know you just got done training.
No, man, for sure. Thanks for having me. I appreciate that you're even doing this with athletes. It's definitely something we didn't have growing up, getting into the sport. We didn't have a way of hearing the pros that we like speak about
Yeah.
kind of what's going on. Back in the day, you just had the DVDs and the magazines, and that's it. So this is a cool aspect to kind of try and get to know people a little bit better, and you get paid nothing from this. So I appreciate you even
Yep.
doing it.
Listen, man, I've always been a fan of bodybuilding. I'm a huge fan of bodybuilding, right? Listen, I may not be a pro, but I still live the lifestyle and I admire that whole life. And then I admire, guys who made it, who are successful, who are on top of their league. But at the same time, I know you guys go through difficulties that people don't get to see. They just get to see you train hard. So I like to give a chance to give the background stories to you guys so people get to know you personally through personality other than just the weights that you're lifting in the gym and what you present on stage. So
Oh yeah, that's cool.
speaking to that, man, let's get started with, I always was interested to know, as a child, right, seeing your father, right, within the bodybuilding world, you know give me a little bit of that, man, because I could only imagine, being a kid to a professional bodybuilder on such a high level like your father.
Um, yeah, see, it was different for me because my dad wasn't bodybuilding when I was young. So the whole Olympia where he holds me up and does that whole Lion King scene where he's holding me up like I'm Simba and all that. He was already done bodybuilding. He'd been
Gotcha.
done for he'd been done for a long time. So that was his comeback to try and come back into bodybuilding. So I literally never saw him do a show. I never saw him do any competition in my life. I only know him as the police officer. So obviously his last show was, when I was 1 years old. So even by the time that I'm even 5, 6 years old, I don't even really know. I mean, your dad's big. Obviously,
Yeah.
he's bigger than everybody else. I could always play the my dad can beat up your dad, in school. I
Yeah.
definitely always won that. But other than that, it was just kind of like he was just a police officer and a Chicago police officer at that too. So it's a very
That's a
stressful, rigorous life.
yes. Yes.
So that people ask me, how it was and stuff like that. I don't have an answer. I just know how it was growing up as a cops kid. I
Now,
knew going. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Now, as you grew up and you went into teenagers and so forth, did you just kind of roll into bodybuilding because you just enjoyed lifting weights, or was it something that you look back and it's like, let me try something that my dad did?
Eventually, I got into it because I wanted to. But no, anyone who knows me knows that my dad did everything that he could to stop me from bodybuilding. So that was actually something that we butted heads on a lot. As I talked about in Flex's podcast that I just did, now that I'm older, I understand. My dad was an immigrant. He only went to third grade. He escaped from Cuba. Castro tried to kill him. He has this crazy story. The last thing that he probably thought about doing is that his only son is going to get into bodybuilding. Uh,
I see.
Anyone who has any immigrant parents knows that they're just crazy about school. They want you to finish school, go to college, be a doctor, lawyer, something like that. And it just wasn't my thing. I hated school. I played every sport there was. I didn't even lift a weight until I was about 20, 21. And then I eventually fell in love with it. And then I wanted to start trying to work out, vigorously. And my dad wouldn't let me join gyms in Chicago. So I ended up having to move. And I left Chicago to move to Florida to start my bodybuilding career by myself. So that's really where it all started. But I was a swimmer. I ran track. I played water polo. I played all sports, wrestling that you had to lose weight. So I was 6 foot 140. So I was very,
Wow.
very, very skinny. And you could see my rib cage. Even my first show, when I eventually thought, for you to do a competition, you have to think in the back of your head, you're big. You're big.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. Looking back, I was 175.
Wow.
So I was a 6 foot 175 middleweight. I always make the joke that you could see my back double while I was hitting front double. I was just rib cage. It was just bones. I had no idea what I was doing. But you know what's crazy? I had the best time. There's
Yeah.
no pressure. There's no expectations. So I actually enjoyed the beginning of my career more than anything, which is oddly weird because we didn't have social media. There was nothing like that. So we all paid to bodybuild. Now you can get into bodybuilding. There's guys that don't even compete and they make a lot of money through
Correct.
YouTube and their different platforms they have. But I sound so old saying this, but back in my day, when we started, we didn't have any of that. So you literally just had to pay for stuff. I would work at GNC and vitamin shops so that I
Yeah.
can like steal some supplements and stuff like that. And I would always
He
take
would
the
pay.
returns.
He would pay, guys. He would pay.
Yeah. Whenever people return stuff, I would just take it. But that's really how I really got on uh learning stuff. Vitamin Shop actually taught me more than anyone because they have this program where if you want to get a raise, you have to go through this. It's like Vitamin Shop University. So you have
Oh,
to like
nice.
learn about different programs and then you pass certain tests and then you can get a raise. So that's actually where I learned a lot about just nutrition.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. I never knew that. That's pretty
Uh-huh.
interesting.
So
And
so
then
yeah, so go
go
ahead.
ahead up. No, I was gonna say, so you worked, you went through where did you transition afterwards? After, like, was that first show like it lit a bigger fire for you?
Yeah, no, I realized I loved it. I wanted to do it the hardest way possible. I obviously it was natural. I didn't want to take anything. I didn't even do any diuretics. I just didn't drink water for 2 days. I just wanted to do it the hardest way possible. And then I felt like if I still loved it and I wanted to do it, then I can do it with help after that.
Yeah,
And yeah, it was invigorating. I loved it. It was great. I loved doing the routine. I had no idea how to hit poses and stuff like that, but I was having a good time.
that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And then what how long was it afterwards that you moved into like did your weight come on quickly when you started getting more serious, move into nationals and so forth,
Yeah, in
or
the beginning, it came on really quick. I remember I gained like 80 pounds in like 4 months. My body just blew up. But looking back now, I don't think that it was that I put that much weight on. I think it was just from years of trying to lose weight
yeah,
to make certain weight classes in wrestling or be faster in the water that I probably was just putting on weight that I would have normally had if I wasn't in those sports, plus maybe 20 pounds.
yep,
So, but it's funny because this is my favorite story that I always tell people. We all do this when we start bodybuilding, or weightlifting. We always think that the gains that we're going to get in the beginning are going to continue.
I
So
know.
I'm literally thinking in my head, okay, I gained 80 pounds in 5 months times 5 years. I'm gonna be in the first call of the Olympia in like 6 years. And I remember Phil Heath. He just went pro. He was at the metrics booth at I think the Arnold or the Olympia, and I went to him to go talk to him. And I was just saying exactly what I just said, like, oh, I already gained this amount of weight. I'll probably win my pro card in like 2 years, and then I want to try and win the Arnold. And it's funny looking back, because he's so hated. People hate on him all the time.
Yeah.
He could have totally been like, bro, you're an idiot. Like, what are you thinking? But he didn't. He was just like, okay, take your time, be careful, blah blah blah. And it's funny looking back of how that conversation could have really derailed me
That's true.
if he really would have told me the truth. And he would have said, hey, look, it's going to take you 10 years to win your pro card. You will be 30 years old when you win your pro card. It changes everything. So sometimes
Yeah.
it's nice to be naive. Ignorance is bliss, because in the back of my head, I've only got 2 more years and I'm going to win a pro card. And then it's just 2 more years and then it's 2 more years. But yeah, it ended up taking me 10 years just to fill out my body. And that's the hard thing that people don't understand is if I'm 5'6", 5'7", you can fill out your body pretty fast
Yeah.
and be competing in a pro level pretty fast. But when you're 6 foot, when you're tall, you're just a lengthy
Yeah.
person. And it just takes years just to fill out your body automatically. Then you have to learn bodybuilding and learn the timing of your body and peaking it and stuff like that. And then you able to look at it and see, I have no lower back, I have no this, I have no that. So it just took me that long just to have a decent filled out frame. So I did nationals into 2000. Actually, I did nationals when it was in Atlanta, 2010 or 11, something like that. And I got last place, dead last.
Okay.
At the time, this is when there was no like pro cards for second
Yeah.
place and third
Yeah.
place and all that. So it was really hard to win, but it was actually a record. It was the most people in a bodybuilding class. I think it was like 40 people. So it was just insane. So
Yeah.
you have to think 40 people in a class. By the time
That's
you
a
come
lot.
out,
That's a
they've
lot.
already figured out, and you only get top five for the first call out. And back then, I don't know how it is now, you only even get to do your routine if you're in the first call out. So there's 35 guys that went all the way to Atlanta and then went home. You don't even go to the night show.
Ugh.
So I remember I was just so devastated. I was just like, I actually ended up eating until I threw up. I just was like trying to mask that failure by just eating.
Yeah.
And I'd never done that before. I never ate, I've drank till I threw up
Yeah.
before. So I know that feeling, when you're like, you drink too much. I've never eaten so much that I am going to throw up. It's a different feeling. And then even after you throw up, your body keeps trying to throw up. So
Yeah.
that was a really rough one. And then I realized, no, I have to go through the ranks. At least back then, you had to do junior nationals. You had to do those other shows, the stepping shows. You can't just go from lifting weights and go straight to nationals and you're going to win a pro card. So then I was like, okay, let me go back to Chicago, which is where I'm from, go to junior nationals. And I think I got fifth, fourth, something like that. And then took like 2 more years. And then I went to the 2015 nationals and then I got the overall. So it was cool
Gotcha.
to get dead last. And then the next time I did nationals, I won the overall.
After you finished, like, because I'm sure that the first show when you placed and you had that difficulty, when you were done eating the next morning, did you wake up with like a fire underneath you to just fucking go and just get
Well,
better?
I was sick for a couple days actually, because because you eat so much that you throw up, then your body's not hungry for 2 days. It's like I
Because
have
you've been
no
so
appetite.
overloaded.
So you're messed up because that's the time you're starving after a show. It's the time
Yeah.
you have the most craves. And I was eating once a day. I messed up myself internally so bad. So
Wow.
after those couple of days, I always had the fire only because of what I said, because I was just so ignorant that I thought it was just going to be one more year until I won my pro card. So looking back, I'm glad though. I wouldn't change it. Like if someone had came and told me there was no Santa Claus and told me, hey, it's actually going to take you 8 more years. I don't know. I don't know if I would have had the same drive. It's nuts to think about because
Yeah,
again, what I'm saying before is I'm not getting paid shit.
I
Um,
know.
I'm struggling with bills and also too something people don't know in bodybuilding is the hardest part of becoming a pro on your road to be a pro, or even once you are a pro, it's turning down jobs that are good jobs, but they're going
Because
to take
that's
you away from
from
bodybuilding.
bodybuilding. Yeah, that's true.
Right. So there was so many times that I'm just like, no, 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 saying no to these high paying jobs that were probably something I could be working now to this day, but I wasn't going to be able to eat every 2 hours. I wasn't going to be able to train, stuff like that. So thank God I just kept thinking I'm so close to being a pro that I just turned those jobs down. Because if you had told me it's going to be 10 years to win my pro card, then it'll be another 5 years before I get on the Olympia stage, and then it'll be another few years before I get first call at an Arnold, I might have taken that banking job or whatever the job was.
Yeah.
And when you see pros that just disappear, um, that's what happened. And because I don't have kids and I don't have other people like that relying on me, it was easy to be selfish. I'm just going
Understand.
to keep going for this pro card. But when you start having kids and you start having a family and things to take care of, it starts to become where you're stupid because you turn down this well paying job for, I think back then, I don't know what the percentage is now, but back then it was a 4% chance of you making a living from bodybuilding.
Ooh.
That's wild. It's wild to think that that many people go pro, that many people compete, and only 4% make a living where you don't have to work off of it.
Yeah.
So luckily, I was just so ignorant that I just had the fire nonstop. I never didn't have the fire. I had like a hernia surgery that I had to get rid of, taken care of. That took me out for a while. And then one time when I was playing football with some of my friends in Chicago, which I used to play when I was in high school, I realized going back and playing sports when you're a
Uh-uh.
100 pounds more, your body just it can't do it. The
Mhm.
smallest little things, moving the wrong way,
Yep.
you tear things. So I went to try and do like a swim move around someone, and they just jammed me in my armpit, and that was it. My shoulder was wrecked.
Wow.
So I was in a sling for months, and I thought my career was over. And then that was really rough because I didn't have insurance. I was working like a shitty LA Fitness personal training job, and here I am thinking, man, like that's it over something so stupid to play flag football with my friends. But it ended up being one of the best things because once I came back from being injured, I really tried to train the lightest weight possible. And it actually taught me how to train properly. Because when we first get into training, you think if I went from the 80-pound dumbbell to the 100-pound dumbbell, I gained muscle. That's
Right.
just how you think. But that's not true. You could go up 50 pounds on a dumbbell and all you're doing is triceps. You're
Yeah.
getting no chest, or whatever it is. So it actually taught me how to train properly because I was so scared of getting hurt that I actually just learned how to do the movements, and I
Yeah.
actually re-taught myself how to train. And I ended up gaining more after that injury than I had the whole years previous up to that point.
Gotcha. Usually, I don't want to say mistakes, but usually, difficulties in our life are the things that can shape us into something better and open different doors. But as long as we're open to learning from them, just like the way you were open to learn from that, which helps you move forward.
Yeah, I just wish that I was able to say that in the moment because I'm the one who says that to my friends. Hey, everything happens for a reason, yada, yada, yada. But whenever it happens to me, I'm like, oh, why does this always happen to me? That's it. I have bad luck. So I don't know how to, in the moment, be able to tell myself, because that was just one example. My divorce, my depression, me trying to kill myself, my anxiety, all those things ended up being the best things that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
But in the moment, when you're going through the depression or you're going through the divorce and stuff like that, you think that's it. The world is over and your life is over. Me trying to take my own life is clear proof that I had given up mentally.
Yeah.
So thank God I have those things now, because if anything happens to me, nothing will ever be that serious again in my life. But if something close to that happens, I have this example where I almost wasn't here anymore. And after about 2 years after that, it ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me. My divorce, my depression ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me in my entire life. So thank God now I have that I can use it when things get
Hmm.
rough. Like even moving out here, I moved out here to Dubai because I just wasn't happy. I wasn't happy at all. And I definitely wasn't happy bodybuilding anymore. Like I said, when we first started this, we were doing it for fun. We
Yeah.
did it because we enjoyed it. Um, you were saying what are some things that people don't know being a pro. One of the hardest things is your sponsors. It's the hardest thing because it's just a business. And now me having my own supplement company and then being also an athlete, I see both sides now. I
Yeah.
understand it's business. You cannot pay an athlete to sit out for a year and you make no money off of that. But when you're forced to do a show, you resent it. And then you're just not even really loving it, or you just hop in, you look like shit, which ends up hurting both of,
Yeah.
reputations. So I just kind of was just doing shows just to do them. The Arnold was the Arnold in 2021 was the first time ever in my life I wasn't in a first call out. So that was really rough to me. And that's why I wanted to go ahead and hop into the last show of the year, that Legion show where Clarita won. And then that was even more of a kick in the dick. So I kind of was just trying to, it's almost like a gambler, it's just like, oh, one more so I can get
Hmm.
caught up, and I just want to do one more show so that way I can save face, end the year on a good note. And then it was just even worse and even worse. And then when the year was done and I'm watching the Olympia and people that I can beat, I'm just like, oh, I don't know where to even start. Like, I don't know how to like go to the gym and get that oomph again.
Yeah.
So I actually just came out here to visit. I came out here to visit for 3 months, and within 2 weeks, I said I'm not coming back to the States.
That's pretty cool, man.
So
I
yeah, but
assume, was it the fitness environment? Was it just the whole entire culture? Because I know the culture is very nice. Was it just the whole like different lifestyle? Did you just feel like you were starting a new life where you can kind of get fresh back into your roots?
yeah, definitely when I came out here, I thought it was going to be like a Kuwait camel coop type of thing. I think as Americans, we're very ignorant to thinking the whole Middle East is all the same. Saudi Arabia, Iran, Kuwait, they're all completely different than Dubai. So I think when I got out here and it was literally like a mix between San Diego and Las Vegas, I was just like,
Oh,
oh
I
man, this is
see.
amazing.
I
All
see.
the crazy rules that these other countries have and limitations, Dubai doesn't have. Dubai for the rest of the Middle East
Yeah,
is like the bad country. Like they wouldn't want to send their kids to Dubai because anything goes here.
I
The
get it.
women and there's you can drink, stuff like that. So that was definitely made it a lot. easier, like a lot more chill. There's beaches. I definitely love the water.
I see. I
So
know.
when I
I
got
see.
out here,
I see you all the time laying out on. You like a sea. You like a
yeah, man,
sea.
I love the water. Uh, so that was already like oh, okay, I was already wrong about that. And then the gym is the best gym I've ever been to in my entire life. It is insane. And like I've talked about already on a few podcasts, some of the amateurs here are more serious than me and a lot of other pros. It's
Wow.
so wild to watch these guys who aren't getting paid any money. And it kind of reminds you of how you started this.
Hmm.
And they motivate me a lot. Obviously, Andrew Jack is out here. So obviously seeing someone who's like my size helps me because when I was in California, I was the best pro, which is so sad to say. But I like to see people that make my stomach hurt and I need to eat or do another set. I'm not the kind of bodybuilder like I like being the biggest or best bodybuilder in that area. Some guys do. That works for them,
Yeah.
but not for me. So obviously I have Andrew, but really to tell you the truth, these Persian, a few guys from Saudi Arabia, they're just nuts. And there's even guys that are pros. One guy, I'm not even going to attempt to say his name because I'll screw it up. He qualified for the Olympia this year
Yeah.
and he couldn't get a visa and go.
Oh, man.
And if you see him getting ready now for his next show, it's like it never happened. So it's cool to watch these guys prep for a show. They don't even know if they're going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, here we go. And I'm over here like, oh, my wife, my sponsor, so it makes you suck it up. Whatever
Yeah.
you think is that big of a deal, when you see other people doing better than you with less, you're either going to suck it up and do better, or you're going to keep being a mope and make excuses and be pessimistic. So that's actually been the most motivating, is being around people that are just killing it for the love of bodybuilding.
Yeah. Yeah, the environment always would change and help drastically. And yeah, I know what you mean. The people usually the ones that want to be the biggest or best within their gym or area are usually the ones that are limiting themselves to the potential, right? Because they're always going to be the best, right? The
Right?
ones
They
what
enter the same shows every year. They enter that novice show. They win that
yeah,
class.
man, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I agree, but when you're around people who, especially like especially if you catch somebody like that, say like it's a little bit fresher to the game, but you see their passion and their drive, and you do a workout with them, and you're like, damn, this fucking kid is pushing hard, man. I like this, and you start pushing yourself. So yeah, I know what you're referring to, man, and you know, and just the environment itself must have helped out. Now especially if the things you were going through. And, how do you feel like now? Like, I know you put on tons of size, you definitely grew drastically. Do you have anything planned in motion, or is it just kind of just still cruising and seeing where it lands?
No, I'm prepping right now. I definitely want to do a show soon. But I noticed in the sport that when people talk about me good, over the years, people start to forget that it was other people that said these things and not me. And then it turns into where there's this hate against me because somebody said, hey, this guy is looking really good, or this guy might win this show. When I'm not saying nothing. I've never in my entire career ever said, I'm going to win this show. I'm going to beat this person. People that know me get on me because I'm not like that. And
Yeah,
sometimes I should be. Sometimes I should be a little confident. Like, Nick is a big believer in speaking things into existence. And I'm just not like that. But what I've realized is there's a lot of hate towards me for me just doing what I want to do. I don't attack
yeah,
anyone. I don't do anything. So I realized I want to do this next show with no hype. I don't want anyone to know about it. I don't want
got
there to
it.
be any oh, is he going to go into this show? Because one, it puts a lot of anxiety on me
Yes,
too. And I want to do this because I want to do it. I'm not doing it for fans, followers, likes, none of that. So I just kind of want to do a Dorian, disappear, do my thing, get back into loving bodybuilding, jump into a show, win, qualify for the Olympia, and then we can talk all we want going into the
yeah,
Olympia. But my first show back, I just kind of want to just secretly jump into a show, and that's what I'm planning to do.
gotcha. Now, before we finish, there's two last questions. If you would, the first one, if you would go back, Is there anything you would change? And then the second question is, for any of the younger guys and stuff like that, what is your personal advice to them from your experience, your whole experience through your life?
Well, it would be the same answer for both. I wish that I spent more time eating than trying to do the supplements. I was a
Okay.
big like intra workout, calorie shakes. Like I found this like Russian bear calorie shake because it had like 5,000 calories. And, for me being so skinny, I just thought if I can eat 10,000 calories a day, I'm going to be Mr. Olympia. But where are those calories coming from? What kind of quality is it? What is the acid reflux and the issues that you're giving yourself by really eating this junk?
Yeah.
That I wish I would have focused more on that. And I would have spent way more time trying to eat whole meals than supplements. Protein shakes don't do shit. Calorie shakes aren't going to do anything. Obviously, if you're out and about, you don't have a chance to get food. Yes, that's a great substitute. But when you're using a calorie shake instead of a meal, you're just actually making yourself going to have really bad digestive problems in the future. And that's what I ended up doing. I ended up having such bad acid reflux. I have to take every probiotic and every digestive enzyme now just for my body to properly digest stuff. And it's just for 15 years of trying to do every type of synthetic food supplement rather than actually, once I actually set a timer to make it go off every 2 hours, and I just tried to eat every 2 hours. Obviously, in the beginning, the alarm goes off, and you're just like, oh, I can't even think about eating. But if you just take a couple bites and then keep doing that, after a while, your body will get used to eating every
Yeah.
2 hours. And once I did that, I blew up. That was the most gains that I've made in my life, is when I got off every type of supplement. It doesn't help when you were working, like I said, when I was working at Vitamin Shop and GNC.
And it was right
You
there.
know,
Yeah.
it definitely doesn't help. But for people that are still going to those stores, use them to supplement to help you with what you're already doing. Don't change it out
Yeah.
for the actual meals. And that's the biggest advice that I would have gave myself. But if you ask any pro, they'll tell you that
Yeah.
focus on eating, because I did the same thing. I would go to all these expos. Oh, what's the secret? What's the secret? And they're like, man, just eat, focus on eating. And obviously a good mind to muscle connection, focusing on the form rather than the weight. But we all do the same thing. Yeah. But for real, what's the secret? You
Right.
know? And now I'm realizing it's so crazy. I'm giving the advice that I was given and I didn't take it. And that's really what it is. And that's the hardest part of bodybuilding. The hardest part of this sport is the eating. It's trying to make yourself eat when you don't want to. Because when we get into it, we're just thinking like, okay, when I'm dieting, I can get the fish down, I can do the cardio, I can do this and that. But the off season is what's the hard part. Trying to eat huge whole meals. For me, I'm in the open class.
Yeah.
Like if you're in a classic or 212, or you're an amateur and you're in a weight class, it's completely different. You cannot go overboard. But once
Correct.
you're going against the biggest people on the planet, you have to fill out your body and also not blow your gut out.
Yeah.
That's the tricky part. So if people just focus on the whole foods, they'll see huge gains. I took gear and had the worst diet and gained nothing. I remember I did some like a PCT cycle where I was just getting off everything, and that's when I really tried to get on eating. I gained more natural
Yeah.
off everything, focusing on food rather than I did on every gear there was,
Yeah.
eating 3 or 4 meals a day. You're just kidding yourself.
It's true. I think a lot of people, a lot, especially the younger generation, right? It's not even the younger generation, because you have people who might just started a gym the other day, right? And they're in their 30s, but they're like, I'll start the anabolics and be fine. And they start depending on just a tool. And I always tell everybody, I'm like, you're not going to go to Home Depot and the fucking wrench you just bought that costs extra $100 isn't going to get the job done for you quicker if you don't know what you're doing. Like, it just doesn't work that way.
That's
And
perfect. Yeah.
yeah, dude. And what you mentioned about the acid reflux, man, because I remember when I was younger, like I was like mesmerized by everything Muscle Tech was telling me, right? Wait, you know what I mean? Jay Cutler, all of them on the magazines, like, have this shake. Look how they transformed. I'm like, holy shit, bro. 12-week transformation. You know what I'm saying?
It's
Marketing,
crazy.
marketing. So, like, thinking back, like, I do have a lot of like acid issues. that do come up often. And I remember going back, I didn't depend on real food. And there was two things that people would never tell me when I was younger, starting out, is the food aspect. And number two is the drastic importance of health, right? Especially if you do start anabolics. Listen, bro, I remember the guys, like these were national level guys, right? Dude, just take milk thistle. You're good. I'm like,
That's it. You're good.
yeah, and I was just like, oh, okay, what milk thistle, some vitamins. Now, fast forward, we're like, what the fuck? So yeah, there's a lot of huge gap in the information, man. And that's the other thing too, man. Like, I like to bring you guys on so you could tell the real deal out there, and hopefully people listen. Listen, all we can do is just give information and feed it. We can't force people to do things, but if they hear it from, especially like people like you who have the experience, right, live through it, hopefully they'll take it and help them, you know?
Yeah,
So
hopefully, right. That's all you can do.
that's all you can do.
They're gonna
But
be like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But for real, what's your cycle?
yeah, what? Yeah, yes, yes. What are you actually taking? Like, what how
Right.
many milligrams? It's like, dude, come on, bro. And just like, you remember how you mentioned the thing with PCT, man. It's crazy how, like, because I guess, as I get asked all the time, and I deal with customers and stuff like that in general, and they'll randomly just start bringing up antibiotics, and I'm like, look, man, the reality situation is testosterone goes a long way. Everything else is all toxic. If you're not competing, you don't need anything. If you feel like you do need things, then your basics of actually eating on a consistent basis and resting and training correctly are not there. So no matter what you take, yeah, it might look good for the first month when things
Right.
activate, right, and fill out. But after that, you're just a drug user try to chase it.
Right.
So
And you're only going to end up taking more and more because when the
yes,
results stop, you're not thinking, okay, I'm benching this amount and I'm eating, because once you start doing macros is really good for people that are just getting into
yes,
fitness because it just gives them a staple. But if you want to be serious, like you want to win a pro card, you cannot do macros, because then what you're going to start doing is you're going to start finding those numbers whichever way you can. And that's just not how professional bodybuilders eat. We eat
mhm,
X amount of protein and X amount of carbs in this one, but you can't be like, okay, well, I'm going to get this amount of calories from cake,
yep.
or I'm going to sprinkle some protein powder in my oatmeal, and that's going to be the amount of protein that I need.
Yeah. You can't
It's
tell me
tough.
that. Yeah, you can't tell me this carb source is the same as this other carb source. It
No
doesn't.
way.
It
Right.
doesn't. It doesn't work that way, man. But
I wish, because then we would all do a calorie shake 3 times a day,
yes,
have some rice cakes, and yeah, sprinkling the protein powder on some oatmeal. I would eat that 5 times a day. That would be the easiest thing ever.
yes,
But that's just not how it works. The problem is that when you do that once, you get, like you said, you get a little rebound, you get a little
mhm,
fullness, and you're like, oh, this is going to work. The same thing that I said when I first started training. Oh, I gained 40 pounds. I'm going to gain another 40 next
yep.
year, and the next year after that. And then, right, when it stops working, you go, oh, you know what I need? I need trend. That's what it is. And
The
then that's it.
secret.
And
That's it.
then now that person is a bad example of a bodybuilder.
Correct.
It really sucks last year. We lost a lot of good,
We
actual,
did.
legit pros. A lot of them were a lot of issues people don't want to talk about.
Correct.
Dallas choked. They don't want to talk about that. Luke had severe depression, and he killed himself. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
Putting in Sean Roden and George, those are tough issues, because that's the demand of the sport, wanting more and more. And this is the tough part of the sport nowadays, is you have people that are like, oh, don't do that, it's so unhealthy. But then you'll have them turn around in the next post and be like, bro, you haven't even done a show in 2 years. Like, what are you doing? Like, you have to make up your mind.
Yeah.
We either are allowed to do this healthily, if that's a word,
Hmm.
for our family, for our our life, our future, or we have to just jump through the hoops because you want us to, because you want to see so and so go against so and so at the Olympia. And unfortunately, that's not how it works. You can't do that. You can't, because then when you do that, when you try and jump into a show really fast after not really cleaning out from the last one, and God
Yes.
forbid something happens to you, boom, that's it. Now you're the worst example of what this sport does.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to talk about all the great examples. Nobody wants to talk about the people that are walking around looking like Dorian and Jay are happier and healthier now, retired, than
Yeah.
they were competing. If you talk to Dorian, like, my goal in life is to be Dorian. I want to get in, get out. And now he is living life to the fullest. He is just
Yeah.
smoking weed with his hot girlfriend, traveling the
I think he's
world.
I think he's even doing yoga and everything like that now
Yeah,
too.
exactly. And I bet you he's more happy doing that than he was, tearing his bicep and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's ways around it, but unfortunately, we don't want to talk about those people. We don't want to talk about the great examples that are in this sport. So the reason I brought this up is for people that are listening to this, don't be the bad example,
Yeah.
because people don't understand you taking stuff and something happening to you and me taking. They just think you're a bodybuilder. And that's the
Correct.
tough part with the sport now, is everyone's a pro. So if Joe Schmo, who got third place, if you get third place at a junior USA show, you're a pro
Yeah.
now. You get a pro card. So
Yeah.
now if that guy is a bad coach, screws people over in bad prep, no matter what, he's a pro bodybuilder and he's screwing people over.
It's
If he has
everybody.
health, yeah, if he has health complications, the whole sport has health complications.
Yep.
And now, see, oh, did you hear Jimmy? He did so and so, and now he died, or whatever it was. So it's really
Yeah.
hard nowadays. You have to think the whole world's looking at you, and sometimes you're the example. Even not even drug related or health issues, even just being moody. Sometimes people have never met a bodybuilder, and you're in a shit mood, and you
Yeah.
give them attitude or you treat them like shit because you're depleted. No matter what, that's the example they have of a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
Some of these small towns can't travel to the Olympia and other places to see high ranking Olympians. Sometimes
Correct.
the best examples they have is the guy who won the Kentucky whatever show,
That's true.
and now he, you know, kicked you off the bench because he felt like his workout's more important than yours, and then that's it. Boom. Now we
Yeah.
all look bad.
All the
So
bodybuilders are the same. Yep. Yeah. I get it,
yeah,
man. I get it. Well, Serge, listen, brother, it was a pleasure. Seriously, thank you so much for jumping on, giving us a little bit to your background, and I'm sure we'll catch up again soon. All right.
for sure. I'll be back soon, and then let's redo this when I'm getting ready for the Olympia.
Which will be very soon. All right. We're gonna say that out
For
loud, but it'll
sure.
be very soon. All right, brother. Thank you so much, man.
See you, brother. Take care.